Greetings world, we are anonymous. It is our duty today to inform you of the ideological bubble through which your parents, your children, and even you yourself are being boxed into by the government-funded public school systems. We understand that in today's society it is hard for parents to find the time to truly invest in their children's future. However, it is imperative that as your child grow, you pay attention to the morals and standards they are learning, and exactly who they are learning them from. When we say invest in your child's future, we do not simply mean the money that you set aside for them for college, or the days you work every day to provide them with medical care, food, and anything and everything they need to survive. Many parents nowadays, it would seem, have forgotten the importance of their own presence in their child's life, or simply do not have the time set aside to spend with their children. Amongst the everyday hustle, we throw our children into babysitting services, or latchkey programs. The nuclear family has become a hot debate amongst many political, religious, and other ideological groups. We shall dive into this topic, because this is a key piece in how the brainwashing, on a mass scale, first began. The nuclear family has played a consistent role in society as we have continued to progress, and while some of you may find it offensive, it is important to note that the dynamic of the nuclear family is based more so on the necessity of survival rather than the importance of a social stigma. While it is true that the nuclear family played a key role in deciding some social factors, such as being used as a factor to decide what kind of a man or woman you were, please note that raising a child takes the effort of both parents. It can easily be considered a full-time job with overtime, in which the pay is not of material value, but in that of producing a smart/loving human being, in where you will treasure the memories, rather than that which is of substance. Throughout history, humankind would not have survived, if the man had not been there to take care of the family. While the mother is basically disabled, and spending all of her time, feeding and taking care of the child, it was important that the man be there to protect them from natural predators, to build shelters, to hunt for food, and take care of anything else that the mother was not in the condition to take care of. Before the 1930s, the nuclear family was a relatively common goal of life. The working father, the caretaker mother, and the children they would love and nurture. However, as women began to enter the workplace, the nuclear family began to come under attack. Do not get us wrong, Anonymous stands for equal rights of all persons, but it is important to note the changes in society going at the time, as these play a great effect to the current situation. As men were being shipped off to war, and more women entering the workplace, it was imperative that someone be there to take care of the children. Not only did women entering the workplace allow for the government to tax effectively double the amount of people they were taxing before, but this also allowed for children to be taken at much younger ages, and thrown into the public school systems. This is a double-edged sword to the people served under the guise of morality. During the early 1900s, it is evident that only about 18% of women were employed. By 1930s, that number had jumped to about 24%. Now fast forward to the society we live in today, where at least 70% of women are now entered into a workforce, by the time they are just 16. 60% of the women in the workforce have children under the age of 6, and this number can be looked at from both sides of the argument. While it is apparent that the equal rights of women in the workplace has come a long way, it is also very apparent that this statistic means that the number of children placed in preschools and daycare centers has also had to have risen. People would like to argue that as we have progressed as a society, the importance of the mother to stay at home has just about diminished. However, it is exactly the opposite. The first years of the child's life are imperative in the morals that they acquire. Children often look up to the people who are taking care of them, and while the public school systems do not provide adequate care, the teachers in the school system often end up being who these children look to be taught about how they should see and act in life, instead of the parents themselves. From the moment these children are placed into these schools, they are taught to listen and obey. They are taught to value big government, spewing things they learn from books funded and approved by the government. When these children question the things they are learning from the school systems, they are not rewarded for their critical thought, or thinking outside the box, but instead are punished with a failing grade. with the trust that parents put into these school system. This provides a mental stigma to the child, that when they fail, it is their fault. You did not try hard enough is what they are told, and listen better. This forces the child to believe that they should comply with everything the school tells them. If they accurately spew out the knowledge that the teachers approve of, then they are awarded with good grades and praise from both the school system and their parents. Can you honestly believe, when you stop to think about it for a moment, that these children are getting a balanced education from the system, where they allow and foster the growth of critical thought, rather than mindless zombies who believe everything they are told? In a system funded by the government, there is no room to question the government. This factor has become more and more apparent as the liberal ideology becomes dominant amongst public education systems where the liberal mindset outnumbers conservative mindsets 6-1. In the 1960s this was relatively more balanced with about 54% leaning to the left. However, as public school systems continue to get more subsidy from a government that has predominantly liberal leanings, the gap has become severe. People would also like to argue that this is the signs of a truly progressive society. However, it is more likely that this is due to the fact that when school systems allow the government to subsidize more programs, they also allow the government to stick their hands into the education system, and the teachers are left with no room to criticize, lest the funding they receive be revoked for ideological differences. It is time for us all to wake up to the brainwashing we have undergone since childhood. The age of the internet is an amazing time to live in, where human beings have the access to just about any knowledge they may seek. We must learn to use our minds to question the things that truly matter. We must learn to stop silencing other people based on offensive words and terminology. Reality is not a safe space. In order to provide a future for our children, and a truly progressive society, we must learn to accept our ideological differences and look past them. We must learn to harbor real conversations with one another, where all ideas are allowed to be exchanged, whether they be good or bad. Instead of letting a government system control the narrative and silencing those that oppose it. It is time for us to learn to let the cards fall where they may, and learn from the consequences of our own personal actions. We are anonymous. We do not forgive. We do not forget. Expect us